Federal Industry Minister Francois Philippe Champagne is speaking in Ottawa after meeting with grocers over rising food costs. We'll listen in live now.
The pending strike of the auto workers. If they go out on strike, this will be another case of global suppliers will look at Canada and say Canada is not a reliable producer. Are you watching this file?
Well, obviously we're watching, but as you know, you see that on both sides of the border, that you say an action on one side have an impact on both sides. And it talks to the integrated nature of the auto sector, but obviously we're following that very carefully.
Why ask them for solutions? You're the government, you can regulate. Why ask them to give the solutions?
Well, because, I mean, the dynamic of the market, you have to ask the player which represent 80% of the market to come, each of them, because I want more competition. I want more competition. That's what I want. So by saying to them, agree on an outcome. So the outcome has been agreed. Now you want to let them compete among each other so that Canadians can see the benefit of competition. One of the things in Canada, it's not only about what I did today, but you have to remember what we've announced when we were in London recently. We announced the largest package of reform in competition, I would say, in the last few decades, because we said, first of all, we're going to give subpoena power to the competition commissioner. And that's very crucial because you will recall when they did the market study on food prices in Canada, they said they were lacking some information. So now we're going to give the Competition Bureau subpoena power. The second thing we're going to do, which is very fundamental, is the famous efficiencies defense. So we're going to get rid of that. So we're going to have more tool to be able to block mergers that would be anti-competitive for consumers in Canada. And thirdly, we said, you've seen in certain places these kind of arrangement that have existed. So for example, if you have one grocery market in one particular area of a city, there's been a number of cases where they had clauses that would prevent another from coming. So we want to tackle that as well. So you should see that as part of a package where we want less consolidation, more competition, lower prices for Canadians.
Unilever, the French government has difficulty negotiating with those giants. What makes you believe that Canada will be able to negotiate with we are a smaller country? Well, I'm happy you asked that question because you'll understand that what I was seeing is that, first of all, we'll bring together the Canadian CEOs of those companies, but I'm also discussing, and I've approached my French colleagues and British colleagues, and maybe eventually we'll have international collaboration to actually put pressure on these giants, these food giants who push for higher prices. We've seen very concerning cases, which is why I said to the question, what do you expect? This is a process we're starting. We started today, but I'll also be meeting the CEOs of those companies in Canada, and eventually we'll go see our European partners and see internationally if we shouldn't have an international coalition, because what we've seen in food inflation, it's not unique to Canada. We see it in France, we see it in Britain, in Italy as well. We'll start doing our homework here. We're going to talk with our French colleagues, British colleagues, and we'll see the answer. But you know me, we're not going to stop here. We'll continue working. You're going to meet the manufacturers? You're going to call them? Yes, we think it's going to happen this week, the big ones, because, look, the supply chain is complex. I don't have the numbers, but we do have names that we want to meet. Look, I think it's going to be 5 to 10, because if you have too many people in a room, it gets a bit complex. But the message they need to hear, that I hope they'll be watching TV this evening, they'll be reading your articles, we'll call them, and we expect them to be part of the solution. It's not just for the Canadian government, it's for consumers, millions of consumers here, but also in Europe, and we want to sit down with them, and we want them to be part of the solution, and we'll have the same tone that we had with the food giants saying, you need to be part of the solution, and that's why I'm saying here, it's the beginning of a process where we want to work with the industry. The industry has said, we want to work with you, Mr. Minister, because we want to stabilize prices, and I can tell you for that today, it is a step in the right direction for consumers.
Companies that have shareholders to answer to, why do you think that they're going to cut into their profits to stabilize prices? What did they get out of this, and why are they going to do it?
It's about Canadian and consumers. You know what? If the Canadian CEOs don't want to listen to me, I'll go to their board. and I'll go to talk to our counterparts around the world. And you know what? What Canadians expect us is to fight for them. That's my job. That's my day job. I wake up every morning fighting for Canadians and saying, they expect me and our government to do it on their behalf. We're going to talk to them, and then we're going to see. That's not, like I say, just a national problem. It's an international issue that we've seen in other countries. We've been looking at what Waitrose has been doing in the UK. We've been following what Carrefour has been doing in France, and even shaming in public those who don't want to be part of the solution. Excusez-moi.
Le projet de loi que propose Jagmeet.
The legislation suggested by Jagmeet Singh, I haven't looked at what Mr. Singh has done. I have enough to do to make sure that we do concrete things. I work for Canadians. I'm not in the opposition. I'm in the government. What I do for the government is I work to defend Canadians. That's what I said this morning. And with respect, I didn't have time to read it. Will you legislate directly? Look, the Prime Minister was very clear. You don't need to listen to me. The Prime Minister in London who said if there is no concrete action that is significant from the manufacturers, everything is on the table. So for now, what I can report this morning to Canadians is that I was very, very, very clear in the names of millions and millions of Canadians because it's in their names. Listen, we want you to work. We want to stabilize the prices. We'll work with the Canadian government. That's what they said.
When prices are too high, if they're already too high, what good is stability? Don't you need reductions? Don't you need decline?
There's one thing is inflation that you've seen. So what we need to ensure, what you've seen is the food price inflation has been around 8.5%, and general inflation has been much lower. There's been a large gap between the price of inflation and food prices, and we've seen Canadians see it every week. So, like I said, we're going to work to stabilize prices. And bottom line today, the large grocers have accepted to work with the Government of Canada. This is a step in the right direction. We'll keep on pushing them. Trust me, this is just the beginning. By no means this is the end. This is just the beginning, but we're going to be working to bring price stability in Canada. Merci.
Will you be meeting with manufacturers?
Oui, la réponse est oui.
Okay, we've been listening live to Federal Industry Minister Francois Philippe Champagne speaking in Ottawa after meeting with grocers over rising food costs. Now, Francois Philippe Champagne was asked, will he legislate directly if these 5 big grocery chain heads cannot come to some kind of agreement by Thanksgiving weekend? And Philippe Champagne says if there's no action from these grocery chains, then, quote, everything is on the table. Now, this comes after the meeting today. And these 5 grocers, which are Loblaw, Metro, Empire, Walmart, and Costco, must come to some kind of agreement by Thanksgiving weekend to stabilize prices, or else the federal government says that they will implement tax measures instead.